I'm going to spend some time in this next series of videos talking about specific dark side styles and how those styles look in the workplace and online, and how to understand them and manage them in yourself and in other people. I've already posted a series of videos with experts and interesting people talking about the darker side of personality and how that shows up at work, how to understand it, a bit about how to measure it, and how to work with it, because it's always going to come up in your own work and in working with other people. So I think that context is interesting, but it'll also be really useful to talk about those specific styles and those patterns of thinking and behaving that you'll see in yourself and in other people, both at work and online and working online. And the reason it's useful to look at those specific styles and those patterns is you'll start to recognize those patterns, and you could recognize them in yourself and see what your darker side is and how you manage that, and maybe if you can pull back from some of the more negative or slightly problematic, troubling ways of behaving or reacting to stress that you probably have fairly inbuilt patterns of continuously doing similar behaviors and making similar mistakes sometimes when you're overwhelmed or things are really, really difficult or challenging, or you've got too many different demands on your time and attention and well-being. So once you see these patterns, it can be helpful to kind of pull back, step back, and reflect on your own way of coping with really difficult times or situations, and the way other people do as well. Because sometimes interrupting that process and taking a bit of time to think about how you're reacting to stress, especially if you normally react really instinctively and don't necessarily take a pause, or you have trouble separating yourself from a difficult situation or from conflict or from trouble in a relationship, trouble at work. If you have trouble separating that, sometimes you react in ways that are more kind of destructive or sometimes self-destructive than they need to be. So by understanding that and kind of analyzing it and critically thinking about it, it's tough to do, but when you can do it, it can sometimes really help to manage that stress and to pull it back and rein it in before it gets a bit too out of control. It also is really helpful in understanding how these patterns look in your manager, your boss, your colleagues, people who work with you, your direct reports, whoever it is, because everyone has ways of dealing with stress, and everyone has ways of dealing with stress that in the wrong time or the wrong situation can be a bit destructive. It doesn't necessarily mean they're a bad person or that they've got this pattern that can't be changed or these behaviors that can't be managed or dealt with. But understanding how it happens and how people are likely to respond to stress can help you work with them a lot better and understand that, you know, when stuff is really difficult, then maybe there's ways of managing that that are different than when things are pretty good, or when people have a lot of supports and a lot of kind of room to make mistakes versus when they don't so much. So I'm going to talk about each of those styles specifically, spend a bit of time with one video per dark side style that I talk about in Dark Social, and I'm going to spend a bit of time talking about the kind of framework for how we understand different behaviors, relationships, and understanding the dark side in ourselves, and what makes things kind of functional or dysfunctional, problematic or not, manageable or not. So there's also a test online that you can take. There's obviously a link in the description that's free to take. You can get a full description of your dark side personality styles, what that means at work versus online, and a description of each of the styles. So that matches with the videos, and each of the styles are going to be discussed in more detail here, and I'm sure there's going to be more discussion videos with other people talking about them coming up. So there's lots more to come. All of this is covered in Dark Social, but I'm just giving a bit more kind of context and depth to it here. So stay with me, and I look forward to talking about these.